Piccadilly Circus saw the show, they couldn't stop it. It was undeniably something wonderful, jazz. It was a very big thing, and they wanted them to tour more, but most of the performers wanted to come back to Harlem.
Okay, okay.
And when he came back to Harlem, right in the middle of the Harlem Renaissance, and it was like Harper. He was the centerpiece. And when Connie Zen opened up on 7th Avenue,
yes,
he was the first producer, the biggest producer. That was his main place. Then he went over to the Lafayette Theater, the Nest Club, where Mae West's boyfriend owned it, who happened to be black. And
now stop for a second. A lot of this we did not know. So I want to make sure that the audience is keeping abreast of what's happening. This is not only just entertainment, it is historical. So Grant, go right ahead.
Okay, and from that, actually, there was a young guy around his age that needed an apartment. So a lot of the musicians told my grandfather, there's a guy, he's very kind of talented, plays the piano, he's looking for a place to stay, can you let him have a room? My grandfather said, yeah, it was Duke Ellington. Duke Ellington moved in my grandfather's apartment, a block away from the Hotel Teresa, and eventually my grandfather got him a couple of jobs. They went and worked at the Hollywood Inn on Times Square, which was Lucky Luciano's place, his main hangout, and Duke Ellington moved his family and his son in. And when they wanted to open up the Cotton Club, it was called the Club Deluxe. Jack Johnson owned it first.
Yes.
The gangsters moved him out. My grandfather was the first producer there. Clarence Robinson and them worked for him. And he had the Hollywood Inn, the Kentucky Club Review with Duke Ellington uptown. And basically he was doing about 8 shows at a time. Plus, whatever he did at Connie's Inn, after 1 week, he would change the shows there, move it to the Lafayette Theater. From the Lafayette Theater, the shows would move all around the country. They were called tab shows, tabloid shows. So he had about 20 shows going on at the same time.
Marvelous.
And what happened was on vaudeville on Broadway, it was getting tired. People were tired of the shows for a while. He brought in colored talent, which was a novelty, and his main thing was the chorus line. He had those girls dancing and popping and kicking. They danced so well that Bojangles and them had a contest at the Lafayette Theater, and they outbeat him out on his dance numbers.
Right.
He would say, now you all go, and all the girls would do it step for step.
Yes.
And he had never seen anything like that because a lot of people tried to copy his steps and his movements. So he was known for his chorus line, and eventually he gave him a name, and they were called the Harperettes.
I love it. Go ahead,
So
Alan.
right after that was he went to Broadway and took his show from Connie's Inn to Broadway, put Louis Armstrong in the show, and it was called Connie's Hot Chocolates. And within that show you got Black and Blue and Ain't Misbehavin', which he really didn't get any credit for. And the Depression came in.
Yeah, this is around the 29s and
Right,
30s.
right, the 29s and 30s.
Yes.
Depression came in, so a lot of that Harlem nightlife and the Broadway nightlife, the nightclub thing, went downhill. So what he did was, he got called by Al Capone, and he moved to Chicago and ran his club in Chicago, which was similar to the Cotton Club in Harlem. And he ran that for a while and made a big thing out of that too. And then he came back because Frank Schiffman, who owned the Lafayette Theater.
Right, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, Frank Schiffman, who owned the Lafayette Theater, bought the Apollo, and he called up my grandfather and says, please come back to New York. I got a new place, the Apollo Theater. Can you help us, out? Ralph Cooper, and then we're working there. And my grandfather put his stamp on the Apollo Theater. He had a big grand night with Lillian Armstrong, and put Duke Ellington in, and
now we say Lillian, that was Louis Armstrong's wife.
I think it was his wife or his sister.
Okay, okay.
I know that one of his wives.
Was that Louise? Or maybe it was. I'm sorry, but anyway, it was related to him.
Yeah, but his wife, the wife that he married, was in my grandfather's chorus line. And Louis Armstrong would come around and bring chocolate chip cookies to her backstage at the Apollo before they got together and got married. I know that. And Cab Calloway was in his shows, Ethel Waters, anybody that was anybody. what's the lady that has the restaurant downtown? The brother has the restaurant?
Not B. Smith.
No, Josephine Baker.
Oh, Shay's Josephine.
Yeah, Shay Josephine. And Josephine Baker was in his show called Tan Town Topics.
Yes.
From that show, she was discovered to go to France through my research.
You see?
And so after I did all this research, I wanted to corroborate everything. So I went to various theater organizations, relatives, I got letters, and I have all of that set up just to, you know, I showed them my information and my historical, I contacted the Theater Museum of London, I contacted the royal family, I got letters, you know, and all of the theater people that were familiar with this information. And in the 30s, my grandfather helped Oscar Michaud direct the first all-colored talkie. And they did it in Fort Lee, New Jersey, and it was called The Exile. And while they were making The Exile, they made a short filler film, and it was called The Darktown Review. And The Darktown Review was a type of highbrow, but he had to mix in the lowbrow colored entertainment, where we would have the minstrel people sort of making fun of each other, but Oscar Michaud would cut to the operatic type singing, and they made that filler. The prints of The Exile are not that good, but it shows a little bit of the dancing that my grandfather had. And he had the women dressed with feathers, but you could see the soul. See, the main thing was it was soul, and it was in unison, and he was very strict.
Go from here.
With Island Queen come in this morning. Let's go down to the levee and see what she brought in.
Yeah, you can go down to the levee if you want to. I was down there yesterday morning and got insulted.
Who insulted you?
When that boat pulled in, out of all of them folks standing around on the levee, the man had to come off the boat and walk up and insult me.
How they insult?
Ask me that I want to work.
Now, Blondie, that's one thing you sure has got to do is work.
I ain't got to do nothing but stay dark and die.
Well, if you don't get a job so you can eat more often, you're going to die all right, and you're going to die from starvation.
Well, I might die hungry, but I'll never die.
What's he doing here? What
Yes! Yes! Good book teaching ain't been reaching you. One thing I
a young man, and you have gone to backtrack to document this information. How, talking to our audience out there and to the young people that I generally try and encourage to watch the program, to check out what we talk about. It's just not for entertainment. We want it for educational purposes. Could you let them know how to go about doing such a thing?
Well, first of all, I found out that I found roots within myself by when I found this information. I felt more fulfilled, knowing about the struggles that my relatives have gone through. As a matter of fact, from doing this research on my grandfather, I found out my great-grandfather on the other side of my family was being honored when President Clinton was the president. They had the Afro-American Civil War Memorial, and they gave him a plaque. And so when you find out that these people were related to you, although you might not have met them,
right?
You get rooted. You know, we just didn't pop up out of here.
There you go.
You know what I mean? There were reasons why, and you know, I think that spiritually they might be even, you know, sort of around us, guiding us and telling us to learn about your past relatives, learn what we did so that you could use that to move yourself forward and inspire other people.
Beautiful.
And don't be discouraged. When you go to the different libraries, you have to be very patient. You might go in there, you might not find anything one day, but you just got to keep at it, and you have to have that curiosity. And if you find one thing, it will inspire you to find even more little bits of information.
Great, great. Well, Todd, I think this...
Grant,
Jesus.
that's right.
Grant, Lord forgive me. I mean, they're brothers, so it's easy. And I just saw your brother Sunday in church.
Okay.
So I think that just stuck with me. And I can sort of, I would just say, backtrack. Because he was talking about becoming an usher, I was so pleased that settled in my mind, although I was looking forward with such anxiety to work with you. But now, continue. I don't want to mess. I mean, there's so much you have to say.
Well, the thing is, the tragedy of...
You have to excuse me for a minute.
The tragedy of my grandfather and the other performers of that time period was that they were treated very badly. And they had to endure a lot of indignities. Like, even after he went with Plantation Days to England, he was tricked by Sir Alfred Butt, and he switched the tickets to save money, and he tried to make them come back to America on steerage, which is the bottom of the steamboat. Right. They had to pay their own money to go second class, which is the way that they went down there. He had to borrow money from Florence Mills and her husband, U.S. Thompson, to pay for some of the other members to come back the way they went. Now, what happened was my grandfather's career paralleled the industry, so that when he started off at the Apollo, it was variety acts, the same type of minstrel, well, not minstrel, but the medicine show. Yeah, medicine show, variety acts.
Okay.
That's what he was doing, and that's what his forte was. But what happened was, audiences' taste changed. They wanted to see Louis Armstrong by himself. They wanted to see Duke Ellington by himself. They didn't want to see the chorus girls anymore. And when they didn't want to see the chorus girls anymore, Frank Schiffman didn't want to pay them. And they started to get phased out. His type of entertainment had to go to small bars like Small's Paradise, little clubs, and during that time period, when that type of entertainment was phased out, something dramatic happened to him. He was rehearsing his girls in a small club, and he felt funny. He went to get bicarbonated soda, and he had a heart attack and died at Harlem Hospital, but he did it the way he wanted to do it. He went out rehearsing the girls.
Oh, my.
And that happened just at almost exactly at the time that his whole type of entertainment was totally phased out.
Isn't that something?
And so his life became that type of theater, even to the point where he neglected his family associations.
Oh, my.
So, I mean, you know, his blood was flowing through it the whole time.
Right.
And when it was time for him to go, when it was time, the show was over. Yeah.
When they say, let me go with my boots on.
Right.
That's exactly what he did.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So from this information, I'm trying to go into other avenues like books and theater and possibly a roots type thing for TV.
Okay, yes.
And, you know, I've just been compiling the information and making proposals with other people, and that's what I've been doing.
Okay. Now, you just said the magic word. Let's go back again and repeat. There's a Schaumburg. That's one of the places that you
County
did.
Cullen.
County Cullen,
And the Performing Arts Library downtown by Lincoln Center. I spent a lot of time there. They had a lot of pictures. And I mean, you just got to move around. And then I contacted, wherever he traveled, I contacted the museums and the theaters in that place, got letters from them, and that's how it happened. As a matter of fact, the thing I was telling you about my great-grandfather, his name was Friday Hamilton. I didn't know that they had the plaque, but I knew that he lived in South Carolina. So I contacted the governor of South Carolina, and he sent me the information, the current governor. Because I contacted the governor's office because I was told that the governor back during Civil War time was my family's plantation master. And that's what I was trying to find out. But the current governor sent me the information that was on the internet saying about the plaque. And that's how I found out about it.
Well, may I say, Fanny, God bless you, baby. Look at where your background and coming up through the years. And here I am with your grandson, giving us a wonderful lesson. Like I say about Growing with Grace, it's educational, it's entertaining, it's enlightening. God knows you've had all three this afternoon. And when he talked about the pickaninnies and so forth and so on, that was being a bit provocative for our time, correct?
What I don't understand.
You know, you were talking about a section that they're going to see.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I call that being a little provocative for today's age.
Well, people, I mean, we got pickaninnies out there. We got to do something on the music.
Go ahead.
But we have, you know, I mean, it's in a way it goes around, you know. So people want to shut that up and not talk about certain things historically, but sometimes the things don't change, you know. I mean, you think they change, you put on a hat, and some people will do some pickaninny things today, and
that's true.
You know, they might get a gold earring or something out of it, but you know.
A gold too?
Yeah, but I mean, the pickaninnies got you know, those kids, the pickaninnies, they were stars back then in terms of black life. Even though they would dance for pennies and they would let white people rub their boys for good luck.
Play the fool song.
Yeah, but they were the celebrities, because if they didn't have that job, they'd be picking cotton or cleaning toilets or shining shoes. So they were my grandfather was in a way a celebrity even back then.
Yeah, you see, and it's not a matter of who you are, it's who you know, and when you decide to move forward, because it's like with slavery. If we didn't have the tenacity to hang in, we would not be where we are today.
And you see, through show business, because back then the master and the white audience appreciated the performances, there's another level behind that. It's the person. So you three-dimensionalize the person, and people wanted to know. They didn't just want to hear Duke Ellington playing or Louis Armstrong. They wanted to know the person behind it. So in a way, they had to respect them and give them more dignity.
Yes.
Once they got the dignity through the performances, it began to spread around too.
Yeah.
So it began to humanize us.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Okay, Todd,
Grant.
Doggone it. Grant, honey, hold my hand. Hold my hand. Just look, this is Grant Harper Reid. Don't let Grace fool you. This is not his brother. This is Grant Harper Reid, and I want you to come back again and again. You've just touched the tip of the iceberg. So I invite you to come back on Growing with Grace. Anytime you see fit, you could even bring a guest, and you could bring some of your other material. They're going to see a smidget of
the thing that they did in 1931 in Fort Lee when they did the first all-black talkie. They made a filler film, and it's called Darktown Review, when they made The Exile.
Right. Okay. May I say thank you ever so much?
You're welcome.
And Jeannie, Thank you, Jeannie. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And Miss Fanny, God love you. Okay? Tell your friends we're coming on Saturday afternoon, 5 p.m., Channel 56. And if you have any questions, feel free to call me at 212-222-0206. Love to hear from you. And some of you out there who may have had relatives who also experienced some of the things that Grant talked about. We'd love to hear from you. And with that, I'm going to say, if you see someone without a smile, remember to give them one of yours. Okay? Take care. God bless. See you next week.
Can you